Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg here in Las Vegas, and we had two play-in games last night, Hank, and we have two more tonight. We got the NIT, CBI, CIT, and the NIT going on at the same time. Lots of action, lots of good stuff, lots of ways to make money. I'm excited. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I went 2 for 2 yesterday. Belmont was my big winner. Although I was a little disappointed, I thought the score would be a little higher. They just missed the over. But Belmont's a nice team, and I think they're going to win early, and I think they're going to move on. I did a seminar with some guys last night, and one of the guys in the panel, Bernie Fredo, covered the Nevada game. And he said there's some problems with Musselman and the team. And he threw up a caution flag on their game. He said he was there and covered their game. And Bernie's a good guy. I trust his judgment. And as I said, we were on the same panel last night. Bruce Marshall was there, a friend of yours. And, what Bernie said was that he didn't like the players' attitude towards Musselman, the coach, and he said that they really didn't play all that well together, and he thinks they're going to have problems in their opening round. So I respect his opinion.
You know, Hank, not to give away any free plays, but we do that occasionally on this podcast, and I already bet against Nevada because from what I've heard about Musselman is he's playing very few people a lot of minutes, and he's really burned them out. He doesn't play deep enough. He doesn't play deep enough in the bench to get the guys enough rest, and they've already played more minutes than most other teams per player, and that's caused a lot of trouble and a lot of rift on that team, and that's just a coaching philosophy. We saw the same thing in the NBA with Tom Thibodeau when he played.
Well, that's pretty much what Bernie said last night.
Yeah.
He was very emphatic about it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Bernie. Is a good guy. He knows his stuff, and
I've got a strong opinion about Seton Hall. A lot of people like their opponent in their opening game. And I got a strong opinion about Seton Hall. It's like you said, you don't often give out winners in this, but they're playing a team that a lot of people have been giving out, who comes from a small conference, and every time that team stepped out and played outside of their conference, they got beat by 11 points or more 3 times. And I think that that team in particular, who's been they're favored against Seton Hall, and Seton Hall is a rugged team and very tough. And I just think that they're going to be overmatched. I've got a strong opinion on that game. I'll tell you something else interesting about the NIT that I observed going in last night. The teams that come from these smaller conferences that you don't know much about, that are playing the teams that are better known teams, they try harder. They appreciate being in the NIT, and the teams that are in the NIT that are better known teams, they're not all that happy to be playing there. Something to be considered.
That is always a possibility. Gearing and judging the motivation of these clubs as they go forward, it's very difficult to know. I mean, to give you a perfect example, you got 2 teams down there in Texas, TCU and Sam Houston State. I don't know that TCU even gives a damn. They ended the season terribly, and Sam Houston doesn't get to play these other Texas teams as much as they would probably like to. They want to show off and say, hey, we're as good or better, but we never get a chance. That's a motivational issue. granted, they come from a small conference, and TCU's much better athletes, but you have to want to win to make to make that happen. You just can't throw it out on the field and around the floor and make it happen. You have to go out there and want to win. So those kind of things I look for in a lot of matchups. And there's
well, just talking about the NIT now. So.
Well, any basketball game.
Well, I'm not talking about the tournament, the big tournament.
Oh,
I'm talking about the NIT, where these teams that didn't get selected for the big dance are disappointed.
Well,
I think that's a huge factor for the NIT. That's not a factor at all in the NCAA tournament.
Well, that's what I was mentioning. Sam Houston and TCU, they're in the NIT.
Exactly.
They're in the NIT. So that's the kind of stuff I look for. And you look at another thing, and this is a kind of an off the wall stuff. We know there's a lot of bad weather in the country, and Nebraska's having terrible floods. My heart goes out to them and their prayers. Hope they survive and do well to get out of this mess. But here you got a game in Nebraska, and they're hosting Butler. The travel issues for a team coming in and out of a state that has that many problems, it's not necessarily going to be a problem, but you know it's going to be jammed. You know there's going to be some delays. Those kind of situations can play into adding or taking away some advantage for a club. The kind of things other than just power rating numbers, the kind of things that you can put into your equation. So, lots of ways to look at it.
I'll tell you, the tournament starts tomorrow. I feel sorry for Fairleigh Dickinson, who won their playing game. The reward is they get to travel to Salt Lake City and play Gonzaga. Good luck. And there's an interesting game tonight between Arizona State and they get to play, a Big East school that's very respected in St. John's, and those Pac-12 schools are not getting much respect. Another one is a team that has won 8 straight games. That I think is a team you got to take a look at, and that's Oregon. They've got some real good, tough guard play, and they're very well coached, and I wouldn't write them off so fast. St. John's, Arizona State, that's interesting from Bobby Hurley's standpoint. His team is very competitive, and if they win against St. John's, they get to play Buffalo, a team he used to coach. St. John's, I don't think is anything automatic in that game. Very, I think, very competitive playing game. Could be a very entertaining game.
No question, that's a unique situation there with Arizona and the potential of playing Buffalo, where Hurley was the coach, and then you have the similar kind of unique situation with Minnesota and Louisville. The entire Patino family has some history there.
Well, I'm going to tell you something about Minnesota and Louisville. Minnesota went out of the Big Ten 7 times. They're 6-1. I think Louisville is a team that is, I think, got some very glaring weaknesses. They don't play well on neutral courts, and Minnesota does. Minnesota's great on the neutral court, and they will play a slow-down game. Jay Phillips made a great point talking about Virginia, in that they're going to be in a very all the teams that they're going to be playing are going to be teams that play similar styles to them. That they're all defensive-oriented teams. But that's the game that interests me, the Minnesota-Louisville game. Louisville is not good defensively. Minnesota's rugged. I'll tell you something about Louisville. They're soft.
That's very interesting analysis there, Hank. I appreciate that. That goes out of the Big Ten and 6-1. That's an interesting stat. Definitely. Well, you mentioned Belmont last night. They looked very good beating Temple. There was a point in the game where Temple had like a 6-point lead, and then Belmont just went off on them. And
and that was Fran Dunphy's last game. I'll tell you something about Belmont. They average 87 points a game. They're tough.
Very high scoring team. They're going to play Maryland. That's in Jacksonville. Maryland is a 3.5-point favorite over Belmont in the next round.
Well, Belmont's a team that people might overlook. Most people don't even know where Belmont is located. You know where they are?
No, I really don't.
That's why I asked you, because I know.
I knew you knew if you asked me the question. I knew that.
Well, this isn't a geography show, but I didn't know either. And at the dinner table last night, Chuck Esposito knew. He was the only guy at the table who knew. And they're in Nashville. None of us knew where they were.
Wow.
And we had guys there like Andy Isco and Bruce Marshall. Oh, Bruce knew. So Bruce pretty sharp.
Now, Bruce knows a lot. He travels all over the place. He can talk about it. He can even talk about European sports. He's very knowledgeable.
Well, he has a new grandson who is in Europe right now. Beautiful child. And Bruce was proudly showing pictures last night. He's a great guy. I love him.
Yeah, he's been tied in with the Gold Sheet for many, many years, and does
a great job.
Yep, that's a well-established service out there. They put out some great information, good product. I go back a long way with their founder, Mort Olshan, years ago. I had several meetings with Mort. He's unfortunately passed away. But that's a great publication. Yeah.
It's interesting. I guess we were talking about somebody who has done a book, who was working with a service that he moved to. He used to work with ESPN, the magazine, and he wrote a book about, or he tracked 3 guys going through a season who were handicappers. I thought that Larry Merchant already did that book. And I said, I thought Larry Merchant's book, The National Football Lottery, was one of the great books ever about betting. I said, yeah. The only problem with that book is Len Banker's in it.
And God, what year was that published, Hank? Do you remember?
What's that?
What year was that book published?
Oh, it was back in the years ago, over about 25 years ago.
Wow.
Larry took an entire season, and he went through the whole year gambling and on NFL, and came up with a lot of theories on NFL games, like theories that hold up today. It's the best betting. It's the best gambling book I ever read. And Larry's a good writer. Was with the New York Post for years, as you know. And I read that book more than once because it's got a lot of theories in there that hold up today. And he experienced it. He went through a whole year just betting NFL.
And how did he do?
Did fine. He was honest. He learned some lessons from it, and he also interviewed a lot of very people like Lem, who was a very high-profile guy at the time, and wrote about how they did. Wrote about guys, different sports books that were prominent at the time. That you might have remembered on the strip, the small the small joint on the strip. That was one of the original sports books. There was a historical perspective on what to do and what not to do. Some rules that hold up. You should, if you haven't read that book, it's still around. It's great. It's a great book. It's a great read.
Yeah, I'll do that. I remember Little Caesars, I think is what you're talking about. The little
No, it wasn't Little Caesars. It was a very well-known guy who was a very respected handicapper, and it was a place right across, right up the street from the, it was right across from a strip mall. It was a fairly small place that, I wish I could remember the name of it now.
You know,
And the guy was a very well-known handicapper there.
It's not coming to mind right now. I've been here since '70, and it's just not coming to mind right now. Very interesting. Any specific games going today, tomorrow that you want to discuss? We've got some very
Well, there's Xavier's playing today in the NIT. There's a game where they're a well-known team that's a 7-point favorite. Nobody knows that much about their opponent. Probably there's a couple other games in the NIT. Otherwise, there's the 2 play-in games, and then tomorrow they get rolling in the big dance. And there's there's a lot of games that, looking at the 4, I think Gonzaga has got their work cut out for them. I'm anxious to see how Gonzaga reacts to their loss in their own, in their tournament, where they got beat by a team that they were double-digit favorite over. A team that wasn't supposed to score that many points, and I'll be anxious to see how they react as they go through and meet some teams that could get in a lot of trouble, like Syracuse early. Syracuse, I think, should get through their first round game, and I think they go on to play Gonzaga after that. But there's some other teams down the line there. I'll tell you a team that I'm anxious to see is Michigan. I think that team is very well coached. They're exciting to watch. They got great defense. They've got speed, which I really admire in a team. But they've got 4 guys who can score, and they're going to be tough. And I've got them going very far. And I think Gonzaga is a team that's going to have their work cut out for them. I think Duke. I've seen some people who are trying to make a case against Duke because they don't shoot threes or free throws all that well, but they've got their big man healthy, and I just don't see anybody in that bracket who's going to give them that tough a time. I could be wrong. And the other ones, I think, North Carolina is going to be strong. They're another team that's similar to the team I just described. That's got quickness, and they can shoot from outside. They can shoot from inside. I'm curious to see what North Carolina does. I think North Carolina is pretty well loaded, and they're probably anxious, to get another crack in the Final Four, and the other. And Virginia already talked about, what Phillips had to say about them. So, it's going to be interesting. The one team that Virginia is going to face, I think Auburn is in that bracket. And, Bruce Pearl's done a great job with that team. They can shoot 3. They can also shoot, they can also drive to the hoop, and they can also be very disruptive on defense. I think Auburn's a team to watch. It's going to be a great tournament.
They're playing New Mexico State, which is probably a team most people have no idea about. Of course, this team are very...
Yeah, they're a Syracuse-type team. They play that zone, that same kind of zone.
And they're playing at altitude, which they're accustomed to because they play a lot of their games at altitude.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, Auburn's 5.5 point favorite in that game. I know New Mexico State has they have a great record, but their opponents are rather on the weak side, and Auburn's played a very tough schedule. I don't know. That's when you just look at that on the surface, you say, gee, that isn't very many points. But when you dig into it, I mean, New Mexico State they play 10, 12 guys. I mean, constantly. They run their whole roster on the floor all the time. So they're always going to be fresh.
Well, I got to tell you something. Auburn has a lot of guys, too.
That's going to be an interesting game. Very interesting game.
I'll tell you a team that I think is at Old Dominion. It's a big dog. It's a team that
they're playing
there's
Purdue.
one team that
They're playing Purdue.
Who's getting at about 11 or 12 points that I think has a real good chance to
Old Dominion's getting 12.5 from Purdue.
I think Purdue is it. You talk about a team that's soft. Purdue, totally soft. And I think Old Dominion is going to kill them on the board. And that's going to be that's a huge number in that game.
A very big number. Now, the team that knocked off Gonzaga, St. Mary's of California, they're traveling to Hartford, Connecticut, which is across the country. That's a big trip, to play Villanova, the defending champ.
Yeah.
They're only getting 4.5 to 5 points. And St. Mary's plays a good brand of basketball, but I don't know. Villanova's an awful tough team to go up against.
Well, those two guards for them played a great tournament in the Big East. They really came on strong, and they're going to be tough for that team to deal with.
I agree. That's going to be. They're going to try to keep the pace slow. They're not going to try to go up tempo with Villanova. That would be difficult.
Yep.
Well, Hank, listen, this is great. I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad we got a chance to do this podcast today.
Yeah, I had to come to my dialysis this morning. I had to be here at 8 o'clock, so I was up at the crack of dawn. And the reason is because I got a television show at 3, so I had to make sure that I was home in time for that. So.
Yeah.
And I fell asleep in the chair, so I apologize for not doing this earlier, but they made me comfortable here, and so anyway, but anyway, I'm busy right now, and by the way, it's official. I start with ESPN next week with the Florida Derby, and I'll be on a week from Friday on their show. So
is that the daily wager show?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good show. I love the way they produce that. They're doing a wonderful job with that show.
Yeah, a lot of numbers they throw at you. But they've got a guy named Schwimmer who's pretty sharp. I never saw him before, and he has a lot of strong opinions, and I think he presents it very well.
Is that the young man with the big beard?
Yeah, okay. That's it.
Yeah, he's sounds like he's a very intelligent guy.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you, Hank. I appreciate it. We'll talk again Friday.
All right.
Okay, buddy.
All right. Good luck tomorrow.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jim. Hey, yeah, it's funny that you and Bernie had the same information on Nevada. I think that's a big play then.
Yeah, I agree. I got a pretty good big bet on Florida already.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I got to run. I got somebody here examining me right now.
Okay, buddy.
Putting her hands all up.